Today's documentary, The Ghost Flight of N844AA. It is a sound that belongs to a busy afternoon at a major hub, the deep, throaty roar of three Pratt and Whitney jet engines spooling to life. But here, at Angola's Quatro de Fevereiro airport on the night of May 25, 2003, that sound was profoundly, terrifyingly wrong. The sun had long since set over Luanda. The air traffic control tower was quiet. No flight plan had been filed. No clearance had been requested. And yet, under the cover of a moonless African sky, the massive silhouette of a Boeing 727, tail number N844AA, began to move. It taxied slowly, purposefully, its navigation lights dark. It turned onto the main runway without a word spoken to the controllers now frantically trying to hail it. And then, with its engines screaming to full power, the aircraft, a 120-foot-long, 100-ton airliner, accelerated down the tarmac, lifted its nose, and soared into the black void over the Atlantic Ocean. It was flying, but it was not flying. It was escaping, and the two shadowy figures at its controls were about to perform one of the most audacious and perplexing vanishing acts in aviation history. The Quatro de Fevereiro airport in May 2003 was a chaotic, sprawling place, a reflection of an Angola still struggling to emerge from a brutal 27-year civil war that had ended just months before. The airport was a graveyard and a marketplace for aging aircraft. Decommissioned airliners sat idle on the peripheries, their windows dusty, their tires flat. Among these forgotten giants was N844AA, a Boeing 727-223 first flown in 1975, a veteran of American Airlines service. By 2003, it was owned by a Miami-based company called Aerospace Sales and Leasing and had been sitting in Angola for over a year. Its engines were inoperative. Its batteries were dead. But to the right person, with the right knowledge, it was a vessel of immense potential. And on that Sunday evening, that person arrived. His name was Ben Charles Padilla. A 50-year-old American from Florida, Padilla was a certified flight engineer, an airframe, and power plant mechanic. He was described by those who knew him as a talented, quiet, deeply resourceful man who spoke French and Portuguese, loved aviation, and had fallen on hard times. He had been hired by a man named Keith Irwin, the owner of a company called Irwin Air, to go to Angola and get two aircraft, including the 727, airworthy and flown out of the country. The business dealings surrounding the plane were a tangled web. The 727 was technically leased to an Angolan airline called Air Angola, but that deal had soured. Money was owed. The aircraft was essentially impounded. Padilla's mission, as he understood it, was to repair the jet and prepare it for a legal ferry flight to South Africa, where it would be repainted and sold. For weeks, he and a team of local Angolan mechanics worked under the sweltering sun. They replaced the dead batteries. They struggled to get the aging engines to turn over. The work was slow, difficult, and took place in an atmosphere of simmering tension and bureaucratic confusion. Padilla was not alone. With him was a man named John Mikel Matantu, a 44-year-old native of the Democratic Republic of Congo. Matantu was not a trained pilot. He was a flight engineer, like Padilla, but his exact role and his level of complicity remain one of the ghost flight's enduring mysteries. What is certain is that on the evening of May 25th, both men were at the airport. Padilla had reportedly been acting strangely in the days leading up to the event. Agitated, focused, secretive. He told a colleague he was going to test the engines. As darkness fell, Padilla and Matantu boarded the 727. They were the only two souls on board. With practiced, illicit skill, they bypassed the need for external power. The cockpit lights flickered on. The instrument panels glowed. One by one, the three engines coughed, whined, and then roared into life. The control tower saw the movement. They radioed the aircraft. There was no response. They flashed the runway lights. The 727 ignored them. It was a brazen, silent theft, executed with chilling precision. The aircraft turned south after takeoff, a dark phantom disappearing from radar screens as it headed out over the vast, empty expanse of the South Atlantic Ocean. In the tower, confusion turned to alarm, then to dread. Authorities were notified. The American embassy was contacted. The Angolan government launched Air Force jets in a desperate attempt to locate the vanished airliner, but they found nothing. The ocean had swallowed the 727 whole. By morning, an international investigation was underway, led by the FBI, the CIA, and Interpol. The first, most terrifying question had to be asked. Was this an act of terrorism? In the post-9/11 world, the specter of a stolen airliner being used as a weapon was a visceral, paralyzing fear. The FBI immediately dispatched agents to Angola. They scoured the airport. They interviewed everyone who had come into contact with Padilla and the plane. A global alert went out for N844AA. But the Atlantic is the world's second-largest ocean. A 727, if flown skillfully, had a range of nearly 2,500 nautical miles. It could have reached a dozen countries, or it could have crashed into the sea moments after takeoff. The search area was impossibly large. As investigators dug into the background of Ben Padilla, a more complex picture emerged. This was not a random crime of opportunity. This was a meticulously planned operation, but to what end? Padilla was deeply in debt. He had liens against his home. His aviation business had failed. He was a man under severe financial pressure. But could one man, even with an accomplice, truly mastermind the theft and disappearance of a jetliner? Theories began to crystallize, each more bizarre than the last. Theory 1. Insurance fraud. The 727 was worth millions in parts. If it could be vanished, a hefty insurance payout could be collected. But the insurance on N844AA had reportedly lapsed. The owners claimed they had no motive to stage a theft. Theory 2. Drug smuggling. West Africa was a major transit point for narcotics. A large aircraft, flown off the grid, could be the perfect vehicle for a massive shipment. Perhaps Padilla was a pawn for a sophisticated criminal syndicate. He gets the plane airworthy, hands it over to drug runners, and is either paid off or eliminated. Then there was the third and most haunting theory, a suicide mission. Ben Padilla's family in the United States vehemently rejected this. His sister, Benita Padilla Kirkland, described a loving brother, a devoted uncle, a man of faith who would never take his own life, let alone someone else's. But investigators uncovered troubling details. Padilla had suffered a serious head injury years earlier in a car accident. His personality had changed, according to some acquaintances. He had become more volatile, more prone to grand, unrealistic schemes. He had spoken to a friend about a plan to fly to the Bahamas. This theory, however, fails to fully account for the sheer technical difficulty of the theft or the presence of John Matantu. Did Matantu go willingly, or was he a hostage? The investigation hit wall after wall. The Angolan Air Force search found no debris. Satellite imagery revealed nothing. No distress calls were ever intercepted. The plane's emergency locator transmitter, or ELT, which should activate on impact, was silent. This silence itself became a clue. An ELT can be disabled. The FBI traced Padilla's communications and finances, finding hints of shady deals and middlemen, but no smoking gun. For the families of Ben Padilla and John Matantu, the disappearance was a waking nightmare without end. They were left in a tortuous limbo, without a body to bury, without proof of death, without any answers. Benita Padilla Kirkland launched her own relentless campaign for information, pleading with the U.S. government, hiring private investigators, and keeping her brother's story in the public eye. Years turned into decades. The mystery of N844AA hardened into legend, a chilling campfire story for the aviation age. But then, tantalizing fragments of new information would surface, only to dissolve upon closer inspection. In 2004, a report emerged of a similar-looking 727 making a rough, clandestine landing at an airstrip in Guinea, West Africa. The aircraft was reportedly dismantled there. Investigators checked. It was a false lead. Another rumor placed the plane in Mali, hidden under camouflage netting. Again, nothing. Today, the case remains open but cold. The FBI and NTSB files are still active, though no active investigation is underway. The Atlantic Ocean keeps its secret. The story of the ghost flight of N844AA endures because it is more than a simple crime. It is a labyrinth. It is a story about the fragility of borders in a globalized world, where a machine built for connection can be turned into an instrument of perfect disappearance. And at its heart, it is a profoundly human story about two men. What did they say to each other in that dark cockpit as the African coastline faded behind them. We will likely never know. The ocean does not give up its secrets easily. And so, N844AA endures not as wreckage, but as a specter, a ghost flight forever suspended in that moment between the last known radar contact and the infinite, unanswered question of what happened next. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this documentary, please subscribe to our channel. We bring you fascinating documentaries on history, science, civilizations, mysteries, and the untold stories that shaped our world. Hit the subscribe button and the bell icon so you never miss a new release. See you in the next one.